Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Helen and you're watching What Helen Reads. And today I've got a book recommendation for you and it's all based on Beauty and the Beast retellings. So my favourite fairy tale of all time is Beauty and the Beast. It's also one of my favourite Disney movies, both the animated version and the version that came out a couple of years ago with actual people in it. And I just love the whole concept of Beauty and the Beast, about this scarred and tortured hero, but also it's the sacrifice element, isn't it? Because ultimately he sacrifices his own happiness so that she can be happy. So if you like Beauty and the Beast retellings too, then I've got some recommendations for you, and I think these are a bit more unusual than some of the others that other people recommend, so hopefully you'll find something new that you can enjoy too. Okay, so the first one I'm going to recommend is Bought by the Beast, and this is by Lexi Hart. Now, Lexi Hart brought this book out in 2019, and until recently it was her only book, so it was a debut novel. So in this one we're following the hero, Dimitri, and Dimitri had a really tough upbringing, and he was kind of on the streets, and he was rescued by the head of the mafia, the Russian mafia, and kind of brought up into the mafia lifestyle. And he was trained as their hitman, and now he's their #1 hitman and also the most notorious criminal in the city. Now he's secretly been stalking our heroine, and her name is Daisy. Now Daisy's father has got in trouble with the Russian mafia and owes them a lot of money, and her only option really is to sell herself in one of their virgin auctions. And of course, who should buy her but Dimitri? So we have the situation where he's bought her at a virgin auction, and he gets to keep her for a week, and he takes her to his cabin out in the wilderness. He's got this cabin where he kind of retires to, or kind of he spends his like downtime, so when he's not the hitman for the Russian mafia, he's kind of in this cabin, and that's where he takes her. So we've kind of got a bit of close proximity, like very loosely following the theme of Beauty and the Beast. Dimitri is very much a scarred hero. People are afraid of him, and she's very much, you know, the beautiful heroine who comes in and kind of, you know, pecks away at his armour until she finds the good person underneath. So I really love this one. I was actually blown away by this book in terms of the fact that it was the author's debut novel, and I just loved all the themes. So like I say, it's very much a scarred and tortured hero. The heroine sacrifices herself for her father, because obviously he's the one in debt and she's selling herself to save her father from the debt. So again, very much following the Beauty and the Beast themes. He takes her to his house, so this is not like an old mansion style castle, but it's his house, and she's kind of captive there and she can't escape, at least until the time is up. And of course, with any good Beauty and the Beast retelling, he kind of has to let her go at the end and sacrifice his happiness in order to let her have hers. So I highly recommend this one. So the next one I want to recommend is Beast by Measha Stone. So this is book 1 in the Ever After series, and Measha Stone's written 4 books that are loose kind of fairy tale retellings, but the first one is Beast, and it is based on Beauty and the Beast. Now this is also a dark mafia romance. So Ash is the hero of this story, and he's not disfigured, but he is extremely scary. People are afraid of him, and he heads up a criminal organisation. I'm not 100% sure if it's exactly mafia, but he's certainly a criminal. He owns like a sex club of sorts. It's a bit of a sex club slash glorified brothel. Basically, he has women who work for him, and men can come and contract with them to spend a night, a weekend, a month with these women, and it's kind of a dom sub sort of club. So men looking to dominate or submit to women can come and then contract with these women at his club. Ash is also a bit of a loan shark, so he does lend money to people, and when people don't pay him back, he gets very upset about that and needs to set an example. The heroine in this one is Ellie, and her father owns a local coffee shop, but he's been getting into debt, and he's borrowed some money from Ash which he hasn't repaid. So Ash goes to basically teach him a lesson and also set a bit of an example with the father, and he's going to torture and potentially kill her father. So she rushes in, she wants to save her father, and she offers herself in exchange for her dad, and she agrees to repay the debt. So as a result, Ash accepts this and she goes to live with him, and she's very kind of like then locked in and becomes his captive. She's also an artist and he lets her continue her art, but she's very much kind of locked in the tower, if you like, doing her painting. But during the course of her stay with him, obviously they're going to develop a relationship. Now, Measha Stone's heroes are very dominant and possessive and alpha, and you know, they often resort to methods of spanking in order to punish their women. So there is some dub-con, non-con sexual scenes in here as well. So I would definitely check the trigger warnings if you have any issues with those sorts of things. But basically, I absolutely love this one. Again, it had all the themes that I love about a Beauty and the Beast romance, of her sacrificing herself for her dad, forced proximity / being a captive to this person. His house is more mansion-like, is a little bit like darker, a little bit more gothic than the first book that I recommended. And Ash is very, like I say, he's not scarred, but he's very intimidating and people are very scared of him. But over time, she manages to, you know, get under his skin, and he shows a different side to her, and they definitely get their happy ever after at the end. So, highly recommend. So, book 3 that I'm going to recommend is also called Beast, and this is by A Zavarelli. So A Zavarelli is known more for her Mafia Boston Underworld series, which I do really love, and Beast is book 1 of the Twisted Ever After series. So this is really dark retellings, and probably the darkest of all the ones I'm going to recommend today. So if you do have any trigger warnings at all, or don't like extremely dark romance, then this book won't be for you. But if you do love a dark romance, then I would definitely recommend this one. It is certainly much grittier and more unique than some of the others. So as I said, this one isn't for the faint-hearted, and this one we are following Javi. He's the hero, and he had a very, very traumatic and horrible childhood. And when he was a small boy still, he's kind of rescued, and I'm going to say rescued, by a government agency. And they take him from the situation that he's in, and they kind of train him to be a hitman / serial killer. He's very unhinged, and their methods of training are very harsh. And as part of his training, he gets a handler, and his handler is kind of like his father figure, or that's how he thinks of him, although obviously he never gets to live with him as a boy. So the handler has a daughter, and her name is Bella, and Javi becomes very obsessed with Bella because over the years, he's kind of like kept an eye on her, stalked her a little bit, really trying to understand why her dad would love her, and, you know, because he's sort of the father figure, so there's also almost a bit of jealousy going on because, you know, she gets to live with her dad, but he doesn't get to go home with him, and so, like I say, there's a bit of jealousy going on there, and he sort of becomes a bit of a stalker to Bella, who seems to have this amazing life. Now, she's an artist, and she's a budding singer, and she's trying to write songs, and she is sort of semi-famous at this point and singing in public, and so he kind of stalks her and watches her music and watches her singing and everything. Now one day her dad goes missing, and no one knows what's happened to him, and she's determined to try and find out what happened to her dad and where he's gone. And by investigating her father's disappearance, she kind of puts herself directly in Javi's path, and this is Javi's opportunity to kind of intercept her life and take her. So he ends up holding her captive in his house. It's a very, very spooky place. There's lots of horrible things that have happened in this house, and lots of history there for him. And he isn't particularly nice to her at first. He is, you know, truly horrible person, and he's going to train her like he was trained by her father. And this kind of involves some torture techniques. She's trapped inside a room, he's playing loud music, he starves her, and at one point she even has to nail on broken glass. So it is quite harrowing to read in parts. Like I said, this is a much darker romance than the others I've recommended, and he's definitely not nice to the heroine. And so it's almost a bit of Stockholm syndrome, where she starts to develop feelings for him even though he's actually not treated her that well. But still, I absolutely loved this one. It was a real page turner. It was really, really gripping. You really felt for the hero, because when you find out his backstory and what happened to him and how his life is shaped up, you kind of really understand his motivations and why he's doing what he's doing. And you really believe that he is not only obsessed with this girl, but ultimately comes to love her. So again, it's got kind of quite a lot of the Beauty and the Beast elements. He's very a scarred, tortured hero. She's kept in captivity, like she's his captive in the house. And also there's that dad element as well. She's gone there to try and like find out what's happened to her dad. Ultimately, you know, he has to let her go in order to win her back. So like I say, please read the trigger warnings for that. It's much darker than the other ones I've recommended, but if you do like a dark romance, then I'd highly recommend The Beast by A Zavarelli. Okay, so the next one I'm going to recommend is Broken Prince by R.G. Angel. And this one is, again, a mafia romance. It's also an age gap romance as well. Our hero in this one is Luca, and he is a scarred hero. He's very damaged and troubled. Now, he's head of the mafia, or at least he was a capo in the Italian mafia. But since a tragic accident, he is very much become very reclusive and now just lives in his mansion away from the city, and he kind of rules the mafia kind of by proxy. So he's left someone else in charge basically, although he could take back control at any point if he wanted to. But he's very tortured about the accident and, you know, blames himself for what happened, and we find out more about that in the book in terms of what his motivations are. But he's very much become an alcoholic and a recluse. Now, he needs a housekeeper, so he advertises for a housekeeper, and this is where we meet the heroine, who is Cassie. Now, Cassie is absolutely desperate for a job. She can't get a job anywhere in town. The reason being that her parents have recently been prosecuted and put into prison for stealing money from old people, and so her reputation is literally on the floor. She has a younger brother as well who has been taken into care because she's not old enough to look after him, and doesn't have a job, and like I say, the parents have now gone to prison, so she's desperate to get herself a job and a stable income and a place to live so that she can get her brother back out of care and look after him. So she kind of really has no choice but to become the housekeeper for Luca, and no one else wants this job, so she knows it's going to be pretty tough, but she's determined to stick it out. Now, when she gets there, basically the house is called Hartfield Manor, and it's a large sort of mansion, and it's described as being cursed and unwanted, and so it paints this very, very dark sort of gothic picture of what this place is like. And also Luca's got some pretty strict rules, so although she's come to be his housekeeper, he doesn't want to see her, and she's not allowed in the West Wing, if you like. She's not allowed to his part of the mansion. And even when she's making him dinner and bringing it to the dining room, she has to place it in the dining room and then leave and then ring a bell so that he knows the dining room's empty, he can go down and eat. So he very much protects his privacy, and also just wants to kind of like dwell in his own, you know, just dwell in his own sadness. But of course, over time, they start to have a relationship through the house telecom system, and eventually she kind of meets him and they start this relationship. But really, before they can be together, they have to work out their own issues. But again, what I love about this one is the fact that, you know, they're in this kind of like close proximity setting. He's extremely troubled. She is determined to kind of break through his armour to the person underneath, and ultimately they get their happy ever after. So the next one I've got for you is Knocked Up by the Beast by Aria Blue. Now, this one's recently been retitled, I noticed, to Owned by the Beast. So when I read it, it was called Knocked Up by the Beast, but it's recently been retitled to Owned by the Beast. Now, this is book 1 in the Kingdom series, and again, it's a dark mafia romance. You've seen a theme here. So in this one, the hero and heroine's names are pretty close to the bone. We've had some very similar, like Ellie and Bella and stuff. So in this one, we have the hero, who is called Leo, and our heroine is Belle. So this is more classically Beauty and the Beast. The start of this one very much is similar to the actual fairy tale. So she's got a father who is struggling for money, and and she's also got 2 sisters. Now one of the sisters is mute and won't speak after a trauma, and she gets a book later on, and when she's out one day she gets stopped by an old lady who kind of says some things to her about what might happen in the future. It's all very cryptic, and it feels kind of like fairy tale-y, almost like it's a fairy godmother or some sort of witch who's given her this like insight into her future, and it's all very strange. Anyway, after that, because her father owes so much money, he actually goes to Leo's house and steals something from him. So again, very similar to the Disney kind of animation where the father goes into the grounds and the beast thinks that he's taken something precious, one of the roses from the garden, and Leo is not happy about this, and in exchange for him not doing anything to her father, she offers to come and live with him in his house. Once she's there, it's in the middle of the forest, out of the way. It's a very, very big, again, forbidding kind of sort of mansion, and she sets about her tasks of, like, you know, opening the curtains, cleaning the rooms, and just bringing a bit more light into the place. Now again, in this one we have a west wing that she's not supposed to enter, but there isn't a rose in there. There's actually another person, another woman, and again there's a whole mystery surrounding this and who this person is, but ultimately she is the heroine from the second book in the series, so we find out a bit more about her later. Now this one is a bit of a tale of 2 halves really, because he is, you know, in the first half of the book, it very closely follows the traditional Beauty and the Beast story, and ultimately they kind of get together. But then halfway through there is a reason why he needs to leave, and they don't see each other for several months. And it's during that time that she finds out that she's pregnant, so there is a secret baby in here, and not so much that she keeps it a secret from him, it's just that he's gone for a reason in the book that I don't want to give away, and so it's not till much later that he comes back and discovers that she is actually pregnant with his child. So it's kind of a book of 2 halves. Like I said, the first one is very kind of like almost fairy tale like, almost magical, lots of kind of mystery around what's going on, and then after he leaves he kind of has to go and sort out some stuff from the mafia world and what's going on there, and it's kind of a segue then into the rest of the books. We learn a bit more about some of the other characters, but again I like this one because it is very much a troubled hero, a daughter who sacrifices herself for her father, and living in this kind of like close proximity, like almost a captive arrangement in this sort of like old ramshackled mansion with a mysterious west wing. So again, if you like that sort of thing, then it's another book that I'd highly recommend. And the final book that I want to recommend today is Beauty and the Beast by Georgia Le Carre. Now this one is a modern day billionaire romance, and it's also loosely linked to the mafia. So in this one we've got Sky, she's our heroine, and in this one her father is sick and she needs money to pay for his medical bills. Now one of the ways in which she does that is that she sells herself to a local sort of criminal called Salvatore, and the idea is that if she's agrees to be with him for a month, then he'll pay the medical bills and look after her father for her. But Salvatore is not a very nice character at all. In fact, he makes her skin crawl, and at the end of the month he refuses to let her go, and she's kind of trapped in this relationship she desperately wants to get out of. She ends up at a party with Salvatore, and then we meet the hero, who is Luca. So again, we have another Luca. So Luca seems to be a very popular name for Italian mafia heroes, and he happens to be head of the Boston Mafia. Now he takes an instant like to this girl and realises that she's kind of trapped by Salvatore, and so he offers to buy her out of the contract with Salvatore in exchange that she's now going to come and live with him for a month. Now she's much more attracted to him than she is to Salvatore, and she doesn't really have a choice anyway, and she agrees to this deal. Salvatore's not too happy about it, but basically Luca is bigger on the food chain than him, so basically Luca takes Sky for himself, takes her back to his mansion, and she's due to be there for a month. And so they get to spend the month together. Now of course during that time they're in very close proximity with each other, false proximity, and you know, as you'd expect, a relationship develops between them. What I absolutely love about this is that during the book, because he's a criminal, the FBI have got eyes on him, and they want to gather evidence in order to be able to prosecute him and put him in prison. And when she's out one day, she gets approached by the FBI, and they try to convince her to betray him. And how that whole scenario plays out and what kind of happens was really, really interesting. I like the choices that the author really made. Her loyalty is very much tested, and I just love the way this ended up playing out. So there you have it, that's 6 recommendations for Beauty and the Beast retellings. I hope you found something of interest that you can put onto your TBR. If you've read any of these and have got your own feedback to share, please don't hesitate to put it down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe for my channel if you want to see more content from me. See you next time. And they actually approach her when she's out one day and try to convince her to pardon me. See you next time. So I highly recommend that one if, like I say. Now, her dad one day, so his handler has a daughter, and her name is Bella, and she is Bella, isn't it? Our hero is Ash, and he's definitely the beast in the story. He's not disfigured, but he is a very scary man, and he's head of the Russian mafia. Actually, I don't think he's Russian.